I've been asked to talk about tokenizing the healthcare system. I hope this will be the closest contact you will have with the healthcare system. If you ski, it's not always the case that you can pass the healthcare system. So, as you heard, I presented that project a year ago here, and one of our co-founders, that was the she he was referring to. And we have made some progress despite the very difficult market. And for those of you who don't know what HIT stands for, it's Health Information Traceability. Originally it was called Health Information Token, but then we saw a kid in the US had already taken up that, so we got stuck with the T and we had to rename it into traceability. So let's start with where the market is right now. If you look at all the tokens in the healthcare system, it's pretty depressing. So you see they lost, it's hard to read, but it's 89% on the top that the token lost in value from the initial date when it was released to date. That is end of February, by the way, and almost all tokens lost quite some value. And why is that? Token is just a piece of cryptographic code. There's no intrinsic value associated to the token, and some of you might know that I have a PhD in psychology, and if we look into the use of token in psychology, in order to have it work, there must be some prerequisites met by a token. First of all, there has to be a token at all, and then if you look at that, there has to be a target behavior here, washing up, dog poo, tidying up your room, make your homework. If you have kids, you maybe implicitly applied token economics already with your kids, because you say, when you clean up your room, you get a red dot. So this is the kind of tokens we have here. And if you have collected 5 red dots, we go to the movie theaters. So you have a target behavior, cleaning up your room, doing your homework. You have the backing up of the token by a reward behavior. It can be we go to the movie theater, or it can be something else. And if you violate that agreement that once I earn tokens, I get something for it, it's over. The token has no intrinsic value at all. And this is kind of what we're seeing in the healthcare tokenized project, is that most of the tokens have no intrinsic value at all. Of course, our project is different, and I'll tell you later how we're different. But let's first look at health data. So in our case, the target behavior is digitizing your health data. Who of you has a personal health record and digitizes his data? What are you using as a health record?
What I'm using for?
As a health record, which application are you using? Excel, okay. That's very basic, but it works, yes. But most of you probably have some fitness app that's can be considered a health record. You're actually collecting data and you're implicitly giving the data to a big company that monetizes the data, and you're not seeing anything from the money that's being made on top of your data. But health data, from most people, for us, it's not a very interesting piece of data set unless we become sick. When we're sick, we are very interested in health data. But since we're not sick all the time, except when you have a chronic disease, you're not interested in your health data. And that's part of the problem. So nobody's collecting the data. So the researchers have the problem, not only that the people are not willing to share the data, they're very often the data is not digitized at all, so it cannot be shared, it's still on paper. And when it's digitized, you very often don't know where it is. Some of your data is at the pharmacy, some of your data is in the hospital, a lot of data is in your devices, and you don't even know about it. So the only one who could really be the one who's merging that data to one record is you, but you're not motivated. And that poses a problem to a lot of researchers. Since you're not motivated to digitize your data, you also cannot be found, you cannot be asked to participate in research. In Germany, the health ministry suggested that we should lower the threshold for data protection so we can actually harvest the data from the people, like the organ donation analogy. You can actually donate your data, but this has caused an uproar. But the real problem nowadays is that when you do a research project, you cannot find the people. When I was a student in Tübingen at the medical psychology department, we did pain research. Pain research per se is not a very pleasant research to participate because it implies that somebody is inflicting pain on you. So what I got was a list of all the people who had already participated in the research, and it was mainly drug addicts, alcoholics, and their pain perception was messed up per se. So it was a very difficult time to get patients enrolled, and not much has changed, because if you look at the literature, it shows that patient enrollment is the #1 difficulty that's named by investigators why their research fails or is delayed and is more costly. And 11% of the testing sites didn't even enroll one patient. So what you see is here access to participants is really important, and this is what a lot of researchers, especially pharma companies, are willing to pay for. And what we do at HIT Foundation is we're trying to match the so-called info seekers, i.e. a pharma company, or can be a hospital, with the individuals. So it's kind of a marketplace, it's decentralized, so we don't have a central database since we're on blockchain. Blockchain is our only persistency, and basically the whole platform is made out of each single app that there is out there. And since we're decentralized, our credo is that individuals should control their health data, and if they agree that it's being used, if they give their consent, they should have a fair reimbursement for that, which is not possible nowadays. And so the ones who are looking for data, they say you get X amount of tokens, that equals 100 Swiss francs, for example, for the data you're sharing. And so if you earn the tokens that they're promising once you share the data, you can actually, that's our vision, pay or afford healthcare services. So we are trying through the back door build a secondary currency in the healthcare system. So to give you an idea what size of market we are talking about, it's $500 billion by 2025. We're talking about digital health data. That's just a rough estimate. We don't really know how much it's really worth, because very often the processes in a hospital rely on the data, and you cannot really quantify what it's worth if you can optimize the processes by using digital data. We all know the market is growing very much. We also know that half of the world's population doesn't have access to proper healthcare because they cannot afford it. They don't have a bank account, they don't have insurance, and this is also a target group we are aiming at, that those people can actually earn tokens with their information, making their information shareable, and in return use that token which they earned as a payment for services. So I already mentioned the research data, the medical record is probably what comes to your mind when we talk about health data. But in reality, health data is a broad field. It ranges from hardcore clinical data, your report on your surgery, your DNA, that's probably the most valuable health data you have. But it can also be like what fitness, what you eat, your everyday behavior. And one of the most valuable data sets in healthcare besides DNA is the so-called real-world evidence, the patient-reported outcome. What companies are really, or hospitals are really interested in is when they treat you, when you take their pills, what happens to you? Very often they don't know. The pharma companies for sure don't know unless they do research. The doctors very often don't know it either. But they would be interested in the benefits their treatment has. So because we're also moving into a direction of a so-called outcome-based reimbursement system, because healthcare systems become very expensive. So we are already seeing cases like Kymriah, that's a very expensive drug. It has been entered the market in the US before, and then it's released by Novartis, and also now it's available in the Swiss market. And it's only getting paid when you prove that it prolongs your life. So, because it's so expensive, it costs more than 300,000 Swiss francs one treatment, so that they only said, you are able to use it in the market, we pay for it, but we only pay for it when it's showing an effect. And therefore you need that, what's called real-world evidence. And we took some research and we tried to estimate what a person can actually earn per year with their data. So this is a value of data sets. That's just a general data set. This is the value one Facebook profile has. So we took that as a standard for a general profile. Patient-reported outcome. Sanitas as an insurance pays you 120 Swiss francs per year if you report your daily steps. And you would be surprised how many people do that for that little money. 12 euros is the price IBM paid for Truven Healthcare for a single record. When 23andMe sells patient records to pharma companies, it's 68 euros. And this is the price Roche paid for one single treatment record for a company that's called Flatiron. They paid 1.9 billion US dollars for the company. And if you divide it by the number of records they had, it's actually what they wanted, so it's 750 euros. And if you go and think how many people out of 100 can actually make money with in that data set, everybody can monetize their general data. 5% of the population might be able to sell their patient-reported outcome, like treatment side effects, their existing personal record, their health record, which resides in some repository in a hospital, and if they actively participate in research, it's 5% also. So that brings us to, if we calculate that, to an average income per person per year of roughly 80 US dollars. So, and how do we actually do that? So we have two parties mainly in that ecosystem. That's the individual who can give data, and we have the data seeker who's actually actively looking for data. And we are the kind of the Airbnb for health data. We are just a matchmaker. We ourselves are not a personal health record. We don't want to store any data ourselves. So we are relying on companion apps where you can actually store your data yourself, like Apple Health as an example, or other personal health records. But since there are no really good patient records out there, right now we are contemplating to make one ourselves, but it has never been a good business case, to be honest. So that's why we are hesitant. So, but what is a real good business case is the matchmaking between those two parties. And in the beginning, if you have an Android phone, you can already download the app. You get rewarded with 400 of our tokens, which we calculate is 40 euros at the moment. And we only do that for the first 10,000, so hurry. download it. The iOS app will be available next week, but we already have a waiting list out there. So you sign up, and in the app you enter some basic data, your age, where you live, how old you are, how heavy you are, how tall you are, your sex, and so on. In the future we also ask for symptoms and your medication. But all the data is on your local device. So it's, as I said, there's no central database. So that metadata with which you can be found is on your device. So when a company has a query, they write it on the blockchain. The query is being written on the blockchain, and the app reads the blockchain. And then you can actually say, okay, they're not paying enough for what they're asking for, so you can deny it. So in that case, no connection will be made between you and the information seeker, but if you agree to participate and share your data, you are actually guided to a link where you can off-chain provide the data. So no medical data will be stored on the blockchain because of GDPR. That's just a no-go. So what happens is you get a link, and the most common case is that you answer a questionnaire. Right now we can already do post-market surveillance, that patient-reported outcome measures, because we are part of the Red Cap consortium where you can actually define the questionnaires. Even as a company or a research organization, you have an instance there. It can be connected to our app, and once the data is being delivered in that questionnaire, you can actually, that's also be written on the blockchain, and the digital contract is executed, and you get the tokens that you have been promised as a reward. We're not building on Ethereum, we are using NEM, more scalability options and faster execution of the transactions. That was the reason for that. And if you look at the ecosystem that we're serving, it's the individual who is interested in earning some tokens. So we are assuming that a lot of people are actually willing to share their data. Some do it for their own profit. Some will say, I will donate the tokens to a good cause. That can be directed wherever you want it to. So, and the information seekers, they have to, if we go further, look that up in detail. The information seeker, in order to get data from you, they have to buy tokens at the exchange. So they pay you tokens for getting the data. That's the common case. Then once, as an individual, you earned the tokens, you want to do something with it. The first thing you can do with the tokens is you can exchange it at the token exchange. But the future vision we have is that you can actually pay medical services with the tokens, like second opinion services. In China, we're discussing massage treatments, not the kind of massage you probably think about, just a medical massage. So, but actually you can use the tokens for many different things. Okay, and that's the kind of the third quadrant we're talking about. Very often the data sits in repositories, like your fitness app, your pharmacy. If you order pharmaceuticals online, your online pharmacy has a lot of very interesting data about you, and actually we have been approached by different information repositories, and they say, how can we monetize the data? And we say, it's easy. You actually, in the ecosystem you're serving as a validator, you say, this kind of data which is here is already validated. It says, I am a diabetic person, so I don't have to show it to them again that I'm diabetic because it's already been verified. And we do a revenue sharing. The token that comes here, part of it goes to the existing repositories, and part of it will be kept by the individual. And the last use case, which is actually very interesting, and it goes into line for psychology, behavioral modification, is that our first use case in Vietnam, they're using the tokens to pay people when they come in for the checkup again, because very often people forget, they're not showing up, they don't give the information. You can even use it as a reward if you stop smoking, you can earn tokens. So this is a kind of, in our vision, becomes a universal currency to pay you for doing something, sharing your information, or even changing your, modifying your behavior. So, probably trying to come to an end. This is, you can have the presentation later on, that's not a problem, so you don't have to photograph it. One important thing in the process of the whole application is the transaction fees. So we are a foundation, we are not for profit. Everything that's being generated on the platform will go back to the community. So we have actually 10% transaction fees that is being asked from the information seekers, and 5 will go back to all the wallets of all the individuals, and 5% will go to our investors, the ones who buy the asset token. So it's kind of a dividend that's being paid to the ones who finance the platform. So we're trying, everything in our case is about growing the network. The more people that are on the platform, the more valuable the platform becomes, the more transactions there are. And if you calculate $80 per person each year, then if we grow by that pace, we are actually, through our multipliers, intend to have more than 500,000 users by the end of the year. And by that, we would already become the largest health community which is out there. So I probably change the sides and it's easier. So in order to grow the platform, we need your help. If you have an Android phone, you can already download it. So it's in the Play Store. It's HI Trust, High Health Information Trust. And you should also be able to find it under HIT Foundation. And if you know somebody who wants to do a pilot project with us, then let me know. And this is our token model. I already told you we have asset token, which is gives you a share in the transaction fees. But the main token is the utility payment token that facilitates the transactions on the platform. And if you invest, and when you buy one asset token on top, you get also 100 of those payment tokens. And if you calculate what the return of the asset token over the years will be, it already depends. It only depends on the size and transaction numbers on the platform. This is what we see is one token is 10 euros, and you have an annual dividend of 3.5 euros. So this is our timeline. The iOS app will be released this month. Then we're trying to hit 10,000 users in the Q2, and we are ready to list at that point in order to have liquidity in the market. And we integrate third-party repositories like Apple Health in Q3. We don't know when the asset token will be listed. There's a problem with the exchanges, we all know that. We will have a service on the platform where when you enter your symptoms, an AI service tells you, okay, you rather should go to the doctor because your symptoms are not looking good. Q4, by the end of 2020, we are aiming for 1 million downloads. And Probably we have like an extra data cache where you can give your data to, but the information seeker will never have the original data, just the insights from your data. So you really never have to give out your personal health data. A fork of the blockchain might be an option later on. And so this is our team. We was here last year. She is expecting a baby very soon, so a crypto baby, so she couldn't come here this time, but next year she will be here again. So thank you very much for your attention. I don't know if you have time for some questions.
Thank you very much, Eberhard. Very exciting. And if I compare with what we've seen last year, then really there was quite some progress made. Congratulations.
Thank you.
The floor is yours. For questions is open. As I'm having the mic just now, I would take the chance. I have the power. And the first one is the most difficult one. Now, if I download the app,
yes.
And we had yesterday quite often the question of trust. How can I trust that you are going to do the data, or do you handle the data in the way you are promising me?
Well, first of all, we cannot handle data at all because the data doesn't get to us. The data always stays on your device. Once you agree to participate in the research, it's the dealing between the two parties. The information seeker has to tell you what he's using the data for, how he handles the data. It's a little bit like Airbnb. Airbnb just, if you're looking for a room, says, Vitus wants a room in Paris or Davos, and how the key between the two parties is being moved, that's not part of Airbnb. But what is part of Airbnb is the settlement of the payment. And that's also what we are doing. Once you deliver the data off-chain, then you are sure you get the tokens that have been promised to you. So we're not dealing data with ourselves because that's like very difficult for global expansion if you have to deal with each data protection guy in this world, and they can be very difficult people, we know that, so that's why we don't want to deal with data at all. If you participate in research, it's always the part of the company that looks for the data to comply with local regulations. Tom?
Eberhard, first of all, congratulations. It's amazing to see the progress that's been made. I have what might be a very naive question because the health industry is not something I'm very familiar with, but it seems that the driver of this is the fact that researchers are willing to pay for data. Yes. So I was just wondering, why don't they just do that straight up? Like, you get your website and say, we'll give you $40 for every person who fills out a form.
Well, actually, they sort of do that already through CROs, contract research organizations, because farm companies very often are not allowed to have the data themselves, so they pay somebody to do the research for them. So that's already a big industry, so we just want to make it easier for them to get to the data. So we are not out there to eliminate the CROs. Actually, we would welcome the CROs to use our platform to get the people much faster, because they suffer from the problem that I described, what I had as a student. They have a pool of 10,000 of patients, but they already participated in many studies, so really have a larger pool is the goal of everybody, but that's a problem right now. And since we are like not a proprietary platform working for Roche, so we are open, and actually what you do with the data is always up to the people. So I think that's a very important point. Once you are in a database of a big company, you lose control of your data, and if you are in the database of a CRO, that's kind of a big bias problem which they are having. And that's clinical research is just one part of what they are looking for. We have use cases that are very small right now. I hope we can finish one with the University Hospital in Zurich, but they say we just want to ask our patients how their experience as a patient was in our house. Because right now they get a return rate of 2 or 3% when they ask the people, and it's on paper. So what they want to do is you shoot a QR code, and you in the app you also get only inquiries from the University Hospital in Zurich. And so they have a direct access to you. You answer the questionnaire and you earn tokens. So that's how we hope to increase the return rate in that case. That's just a very small use case, but actually it's a use case, and you don't find many blockchain use cases in the healthcare system out there right now that work.
So the real blockchain motivation is to build this ecosystem.
You're right. But also to have the person as the one who decides that the data should be shared, and also participate in the monetization of your data. I mean, that's the driving force of us.
How long is the waiting list for the iPhone? iOS app?
Well, my CTO said this morning a week, let's make it 2 weeks. But you can actually sign up on the waiting list to secure your rank.
I have a question to the, let's say, the limiting factor. I assume this is the access to patient data. So the rate you get patient data depends, will in a way define the development of the growth of the business. What is the strategy regarding patient access and access to data? You elaborated a little bit on it, but what is the strategy there on that point?
Well, our strategy is we take everybody. Since we're an open system, even when you don't have health data, you can participate in it. Because through the metadata you're providing, you can be found, and you receive an offer. If you provide your x-ray from your last skiing accident in Davos, we'd pay you 50 Swiss francs because we want to train our AI system. So right now you don't have that data, you don't have a record, but that amount probably motivates you to go to your doctor, maybe it has to be 150 or 200, to ask for your x-ray, which you would never do nowadays because, as I said, we don't care about our data.
So you leave it to the person who is downloading the app because for a certain reason you made an offer, somehow this person got attracted, is downloading the app, and the person itself, that's your strategy, is then somehow motivated to collect all the, let's say, the records, the data that are somehow produced during lifetime or during the last 10 years, and somehow is then putting this data into the app somehow and make it accessible for you. Is this
not for us, for the ecosystem, because as I said,
other channels to acquire patient data.
We have, actually we're in talks with a big online pharmacy because they have millions of data sets which are already kind of verified, because if you take insulin, if you are insulin consumer, you're very likely to suffer from diabetes. So that kind of verifies your health status already. So if we can actually get them to ask each single patient that you can monetize your data through our platform and we give it to you, this will be the 10,000 will be gone in 5 minutes.
What about primary care, hospitals, for instance, hospital chains? Are they not in the focus?
No, because I worked in the hospital for many years, so they are very afraid of bad publicity and monetizing data. I mean, we know how journalists are. They can turn a story upside down, and it's not what the story is really. So patient data is really what they don't want to touch, so in the terms of the monetization.
Okay. One last question.
Okay,
Alex is waiting, so... No, go ahead.
One last question.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to come back to the sale. That's always what interests me the most. Can we maybe go to the slide just quickly? So I really like this dual token model, but I just had a question. The left one, the asset token, is that considered a security token?
Sure.
Okay, and the right one is the utility token. But are those two sales coming separate, or?
Well, we are not selling the payment token. So we are just, because that was one of the reasons when we had the FINMA ruling of our single token model. So we had to separate the financial property financing the platform from the utility and payment functionality. So that's how we created the asset token. And we are actually not selling the utility token, but if you buy one asset token, automatically you are entitled for 100 payment tokens on top of that. If you're smart, you sell the asset, the payment token, and refinance your investment in the asset token.
Yep.
And most of the tokens will go out to when people onboard the system. So as a reward for the when you download it, like the 400 tokens, hopefully you will be earning.
iPhone, but I will do it soon with my second one.
So those we are trying to get out in the market as soon as possible, but you cannot buy it separately.
Okay, but the left one, it's ready to go. You have a prospectus and everything, or is it?
We don't have to have a prospectus. It's more or less a dividend, a derivative we're giving out. So you will have a contract with us, and the tokens are already generated, so we can transfer to you already.
Thanks.
Thanks so much. Probably hang around there for a second, but the usual spiel, people talk about the fact that loads of bitcoins have been stolen, lost, damaged. So yeah, so the typical problem in this space is the fact that, as you well know, most tokens are, well, all tokens are secured by private keys. And if you lose the private key, I'm just checking it's not running away from me. If you lose your private keys, then it's basically kaput. What you can't do is transfer assets. Unlike in normal banking, of course, the records are still there because they're on a blockchain, but it is impossible to move asset off to another account. Therefore, for all intents and purposes, they're lost and gone. So what we do is we secure digital assets by effectively safeguarding private keys. Some people call it crypto custody. I don't like using that term because custody has very specific meaning. So we talk about safeguarding keys. The latest regulation, 5th AML directive, is coming along, and it talks about custodial wallet providers, pretty much what we do. The idea is what we have is the storage of keys in a hardware security module in our data center, protected with our own firmware. And then you have your phone. On the phone, we also have the private key, but that private key is not to sign transactions on the blockchain. It is to make sure that we know who you are. Imagine that as a credential, a passport, driving license. So what I'm going to do is, instead of talking a lot, I'm going to actually show you the demo of the app. This is our individual user experience. We have also an enterprise version, but it's longer to show. So I'm going to show you the individual one. It's the two follow together. This is, again, a single user rather than a multi-user. We have multi-sig and so on. But you'll get the experience of the app, and then after that we can talk more about the features. So what we're seeing here is you log in. It's all Face ID. I'm not showing you the onboarding procedure. The onboarding procedure is you take a selfie of your face. Actually, it's a video. You then take a photo of the passport or any other photo ID. And we use kind of basically bank-grade KYC procedures to match the face of the selfie to the face on the photo ID. We do PEP and sanction checks and open an account for you. Once we open the account for you, you also set your email address and your kind of phone number, plus together with a partial PIN. So that's your identity. And then when you log in for the very first time on the phone, we also create within the secure enclave of the phone a private key. And this is your credentials. This is a little bit like the old-fashioned checking accounts, yeah? You would open an account with a bank, and with the bank deposit a copy of your wet signature. Why would you do that? So that next time you come in to spend the check, they compare the wet signature with the check and then either proceed to approve or not. So what we're going to do next, I'm just going to zoom that out. So So once you're logged in, you're presented with some accounts. As you can see, I've never done too well by buying Ether. This is prod Ether, by the way, so this is all mainnet. So I'm very poor. Any donations, please send this to this QR code. Or actually, why don't we do this? We'll create a new account. And we're going to, I'll call it Mountain. Actually, no, let's call it Davos. Much more exciting. Not Davos. There you go. Ether, add account. So what I'm about to do is sign a request with the secure enclave key to create a new account. That request has been sent off to the hardware security modules in our London data center, and it's come back and created a new HD wallet. And then I can ask for the public address of this HD wallet. So, as you can see, it's pretty quick. I can copy the public address. Of course, I could show you the QR code. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move some money, some Ether, from number 2. So, and I'm pretty tight. So I'm going to put down just this. That's how much. That's how I roll. 0.01. Hey. All right. So now I could have done a QR code, paste it, continue. So you get a confirm this transaction from account number 2, loads of money, to this new account, and we give you suggested transaction costs. You can go higher or lower, but we give you a suggested one. And then I'm going to confirm and send. So what I'm about to do is transfer some cash, hopefully. What's happening is the signature is being applied to the request. It's being sent to the hardware security module. The hardware security modules looks to see if, and we've created a policy file when we created the new seed that basically authorizes the signature in this phone to be re-signed with the key inside the hardware security module. And I've got nice graphics I can show you in a second because it can be a little bit confusing and I'm not great at explaining it. But there you go. So the nice thing is what we do is also we create a segregated account. So don't trust us. Well, trust us a bit to keep your keys. But apart from that, don't necessarily trust us. You can always audit us independently, so you can go into Etherscan and see the transaction. This is public kind of blockchain. This is mainnet. Let me face back at ID. So you can see it's waiting for the confirmation. You can see the same information on the transaction back here. And we haven't got push notifications yet. I've got an email confirming this, and if we just refresh, there you go. So you'll see the transactions just come through. So roughly in about, on average, on Ethereum it's quite nice, 30 seconds, yeah? So we add about 350 milliseconds to the signing procedure, which is pretty fast. So this is the basic kind of experience. We've got Ether right now. We'll be adding within a couple of weeks Bitcoin and ERC20. And if you want to, and this is kind of the first example of slightly more kind of enterprisey features. So what we can do is, what I've shown you right now was you generate a transaction on the phone, view it, sign it, and submit it. But what we can do is, because we're fully API driven, you can generate a transaction elsewhere in a third-party system, then submit it for signing on this device. You sign on the device, submit it, and then it gets published to the blockchain. If you had, for instance, a similar multi-sig, the way we do that is effectively if it's a multi-sig on an account, and we don't do it at blockchain level, you can still use a multi-sig on the blockchain, but we wanted to have a consistent experience across any blockchain network. Effectively, you'll get a pushed transaction. You'll see this is a unsigned transaction, and then once you confirm it, and we have a state transition, so if it's 2 signatures required for a transaction to come through, both will get pushed. Once both individuals have signed it, they can push it through. Not just individuals can have this, machines can have keys as well. Why is that important? Well, because exchanges all of a sudden don't need to have their own accounts. What we can do is we can permission through our policies in exchange to have the right to put a hold on a certain amount on an account. Why would we want to do that? Well, because if you wanted to guarantee settlement of a trade, let's say you got 10 minutes window, then the exchange has the right to put a hold on the transaction, sorry, on the balance, and if successful, it will then have the right to transfer, but only once potentially approved by the human as well. So we frankly treat humans and machines interchangeably. So that's the demo. And really just the rest is a little bit more to explain. So one of the things that we were particularly keen to do is create a solution that is actually a combination of 3 key factors: security, usability, and performance. Yeah? Because hardware wallets are superb. They're really, really good. But the problem with hardware wallets is I think the usability is not always there, and you still have to worry about backup and restore. And of course, one of the reasons hardware wallets emerged was because the secure enclave on your iPhone doesn't support the right elliptic curve parameters. So those signatures are useless. But because we effectively do resigning, we can take advantage of the secure enclave of the phone and then re-sign in the back end with the correct parameter curves. So usability becomes a lot easier. All you have to do is have your trusted old mobile phone. Mobile phones have superb, for instance, supply chains, which is really important because it's much harder for a nation state to go in and alter the hardware. So the bigger the run, the harder it is to interfere with it. And of course, being a ubiquitous device, if you ever lose it, you can just walk into any shop. And also, more importantly, you're not advertising to the rest of the world that you're signing a digital transaction when you pull out your phone. You are when you're doing so on a hardware wallet, which actually puts you in physical risk. And then performance. We basically have infinitely scalable, almost infinitely scalable infrastructure. Everything is serverless. So let me actually kind of fast forward. Here's your app, and then on the top right, you'll see trust sign firmware. So this is HSMs with our custom firmware that does the re-signing. Why do we have our custom firmware? Well, because basically we want to make sure that the only time the transaction is naked and not signed is at the re-signing phase, which is where the attackers would attack. So what do? We put it in firmware inside the hardware security module. So it can be as safe as we possibly can make it. I know that we probably could do even better if we use your guys' stuff, the FPGAs. So that's pretty secure. And then, of course, it's, the HSMs themselves are tamper-proof, so that's really important, plus the physical security of the data center. So the overall cyber and physical posture, we believe to be better than cold storage. But because we only take 350 milliseconds, it's fast enough for trading, and that's a really important aspect as well. And then how do we achieve scale? Well, actually, we treat HSMs as almost stateless caches. We never really keep the keys in there for a long time. When you send the request to us in order to create new seed, we created an HSM, and then we create a policy mapping the secure enclave key on the phone to the key in HSM, and we wrap it with a symmetric key, which is sharded across multiple smart cards, and we export it into the cloud, and we back it up there. So essentially, when you then send the request in, we hot load the wrapped key, unwrap them inside, and then we do the signature. That gives us absolutely kind of geographic spread, so extremely resilient. Yeah. So if one HSM dies, that's okay. We pick up a new one. We load the master key through inserting the shards of the master key across multiple smart cards. Therefore, we prime the HSM, and at that point, we just configure our cloud APIs to talk to that new HSM. All the cloud APIs are serverless functions, so we effectively can run them to almost infinite scale across multiple different regions. So we can sustain huge amount of distraction across the cloud and across data center premises and still survive. And that's a pretty important trait. for institutional kind of guys, because we can pretty much guarantee constant 350 milliseconds, no matter what the load, if we scale out the architecture. Oops, sorry, there you go. Now, how do we deliver this? So we're launching in UK this week, hopefully. Right now, we've got one bug on the new version, so I'm right now not kicking people, but I am virtually kicking them. I was hoping to show it to you on the App Store today, but no such luck. But never mind. So essentially what we're doing is we operate in two modes. In one mode is, because in UK, we're, like in Switzerland, we're allowed to provide custody of Ethereum and Bitcoin without needing a license, we're effectively going direct. You'll be able to install our app from the App Store if you live in UK, and then, like you just seen the demo, you would be able to open an account with us. We would do KYC on you to make sure you're not a criminal. So we don't technically have to do that, but since we are trying to kind of work with financial institutions, they have to have it, so we do. And then once you open the account, you can create new keys, and the relationship is directly between you and us. But we're also working with a number of banks who want to be able to take our technology and offer it as basically a white label service. And that white label service, we can either operate on their behalf. This is what we call, rather unimaginatively, Trust Vault as a service. And then in some cases, what they want to do is say, look, we kind of trust you, it's in your name, but not that much. So can we have the HSMs in our data centers? So what we do is we have this Trust Vault hybrid situation where basically we put the HSMs on-prem, but we register them with our cloud APIs. So essentially our cloud becomes a network's operations center brokering the messages. And then for the folks who completely don't trust anything, we can just do Trust Vault in a box. The software, the hardware, all shipped over to the customer, and they run that. So those are the various different methods of deploying. And I'll stop there and ask for questions.
So I have a technical question about the last step, sending it to the nodes. You say you have a constantly of this 300 milliseconds. How you deal with it if we have a look at the gas of Ether to calculate the gas, and if the transaction is bounced back from the network?
So the 350 seconds is the signing. Okay. So it's a bit like imagine this, my SLA is how quickly, if you give me a call, I will write a letter and put it in the post box.
Yeah, okay.
How long that postie takes to then do that, i.e. the blockchain, is something I cannot affect. Yeah. Okay. So the 350 milliseconds is from the time you send me the instruction from your phone to the time we create the signature with the key inside HSM and submit that transaction to the blockchain. Okay. That's that delta.
And second question is about also these nodes. If you run these nodes by yourself, or do you use public nodes to send then the transaction to the network?
So we use partners. We are invested by Consensus and Two Sigma Ventures. So Consensus has a project, they call them spokes, called Infura. In a very decentralized world, they operate 40% of all the transactions on Ethereum. So we use them. I mean, they're great guys. Yeah. The infrastructure they build out is superb, so we take advantage of that.
Yeah, good stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think it's a great device and looks great, and also the system, but at least if I have only Ether on it, it's a little bit limited. Have you any scope when you will be able to have all ERC20, main ERC20 tokens, I think the 2030 most relevant on it, and when you can get also to other blockchains on this?
So, it's like a complicated answer, but bear with me. The HSM is able to support any basically blockchain, because we kind of separate, we have three key components to the architecture. Trust identity, which knows about you, and this is when we do the KYC and all that kind of stuff. Trust sign, which is basically the firmware that creates signatures. And there we've implemented BIP32 HD wallets, so frankly we can kind of sign any signature that ultimately we use Gemalto HSMs that they can sign. So that's pretty easy kind of stuff. And then we have Trust Vault that knows specifics about each and every different asset class. So right now we've written the UIs and we've written the APIs to deal with Ethereum. We are in beta for Bitcoin, so that's hopefully a couple more weeks and we can release a version of that. And then after that, ERC20 tokens. The reason we're taking time is because essentially what we've done is define this concept of a trust asset class. So if you think about it, most assets are really a tuple of an address or a list of addresses and a ledger. So that's kind of a weird concept, but once you think about it like that, a ledger could be the Ethereum public mainnet ledger, or it could be a smart contract running on that mainnet as a ledger. So once you think about it in that architectural terms, if it's UTXO model, then you want to have a list of addresses. If it's an account model, just one account. So we've now writing adapters for each type of different asset class. And of course, the asset class could be either UTXO or not in terms of addresses, and then specific adapters for whether it's ERC20, ERC14, 1400 for security tokens, and we just need to write those adapters. So it takes time, but we've got a pretty generic mechanism to do that. So under the hood, we can do that already. If you want the nice, and if you just want to use the API, you can do so today. If you want a nice user interface, then probably about 3 months from now.
Thanks, Alex, for your presentation. Very great stuff.
Thank you.
One question. So what's your business model? How are you going to make money with it? Because right now only sell technology, but how are you going to price your customers?
Sure, we've got a couple of models. So when right now, like we're going to launch 100 accounts only because I need to learn. I don't want to go all out and then not be able to support folks. So in UK, we're launching 100 limited accounts. We do have user support as well. People can chat to us. It's all in the app. It's quite easy to do. There, we decided to just charge $4.99. Basically, it's now per month as a subscription fee. It's really nominal amount. The reason for charging is because if we don't charge you, then the feedback you give us is not the same as when you've paid for something. So you need to pay just enough so that you feel kind of, if we produce rubbish, you will be angry with us. Psychology, you need to pay a little bit. But the real reason for doing that is, as I said, is just to learn what are the features, what works for people, what not. Longer term, there are a couple of drivers. So one of the drivers, of course, is do you want insurance or not? If you want insurance, and we are there to, and we're working now with a number of underwriters in UK to offer that. That position has actually shifted nicely. Until probably about 3 months ago, all the insurance paper was absolutely rubbish. You know, the insurance wasn't worth the money it was written on. There were so many exclusions, you would never collect on it. So we are right now launching $4.99 without insurance, because basically there's no point. You'll be just paying for something that you'll never collect on. But the ones we're working through, hopefully will be worth paying the price on, and therefore then you'll be essentially what we call assets under key, because our costs are going to be proportional to the costs of the insurance, which is proportional to assets under key. Therefore, we collect that. If, on the other hand, we're not essentially providing that balance sheet or insurance, and we're working with institutions that are effectively taking the balance sheet risk or paying for the insurance, then it's a much more straightforward SaaS model. We scale on the number of effectively HSM licenses, or firmware licenses, and the number of cloud. So the more performance you need and the more geographic resiliency you need, effectively you pay for those licenses. We're also looking at it and experimenting with per transaction, because some clients absolutely want a relatively predictable overall cost spend, but others want to be more OPEX driven, others more CapEx driven. So kind of for the CapEx kind of ones, kind of they don't mind paying a bit more upfront, but what they don't want to do is halfway through the year run out of budget, and because of transaction fees shooting through the roof. Others actually say, look, we want to start small, we pay per transaction, but it's okay, we can maybe later on convert to something else. So we're frankly trying a number of different business models, but where we offer direct and we take the risk, it's assets under key It's basically the same as assets under custody that custodians have been doing for a very long time.
Now, do you have a timeline for rolling out outside the UK?
Probably about 3 months from now, Switzerland. So what we've done is we've done a lot of due diligence in terms of regulatory permissioning. And UK is very clear. It's outside the regulatory parameter. So is Switzerland. But obviously you have to do terms and conditions. So when you open an account with us, the T's and C's are usually regionally specific. So whilst they kind of are similar between Switzerland and UK, they're not quite the same. So it takes a little bit of time to adjust the T's and C's per region that you go out to. And obviously we would need to extend this business hours support by an hour. You guys wake up a little bit earlier than we do. So minor things like that take actually a long time to then enter new regions. But yeah, Switzerland is our next one.
What do you think, I mean, you come from UBS, you know how a big organization, how it works. If you look today in the landscape of banks, and traditional banks, but also new banks, what are the brands you think are really not just having good marketing, but really are in topics and do quite a good business? So which brands should we have a look on?
Pretty much the only one that has actually gone live is Fidelity, strangely enough, in terms of crypto custody. So I think, everybody else is talking, they've rolled out a service and they're putting risk behind it. So I think I have to give them kudos for that. They're probably the first major brand to launch something. In terms of other digital innovators, to be honest, it's not great. They're still very, it's slow progress.
Oh, okay, still slow.
Thanks a lot for the invitation. It's a pleasure for us to be here today, talk a bit about the evolution of digital financial assets. I'm here today with Dominic. He's the CEO of Crowdlitoken. My name is Lidia Bolla. I'm the CEO of Visionand, and I'll just quickly talk about those two companies and what we are doing. So Visionand is an investment and research company. So we are doing asset management and research, but entirely focused on blockchain assets. Crowdlitoken, on the other hand, is an actual blockchain use case that we were looking at on the investment side, but are also working really closely together now on the distribution side. So me and my person, I'm also heading the distribution at Crowdlitoken. So we are a partner companies forcing up for bringing the whole world of digital financial assets further. We'll first talk quickly a bit about the research we are doing at Visionand, but then would like to put the main part onto Crowdlitoken as an actual use case of a digital financial asset that is investable today. So when we look at the blockchain universe, we try to classify it. One part are currencies, as you all know, such as Bitcoin. So those currencies try to replace or be an addition to existing currency systems such as Swiss franc, US dollar, or something like gold. Then we have assets that are more developer tools, something like Ethereum. Ethereum doesn't try to replace the Swiss franc. Ethereum is more of a blockchain basis where other developers can build on top. Then we have financial and non-financial applications. And Crowdlitoken, as an example, is such a financial application. When we look at how those classes are distributed, we see that the main focus is still on currencies in terms of market capitalization. So the colors are the same as before. But when we look on the timeline, we can look at this slide. Starting 2009 with Bitcoin, ending 2017, we see a couple of blockchain projects being launched. The colors are again the same colors as before. We see that with Bitcoin 2009, as well as in the years following after Bitcoins, we saw mainly currencies that have been launched as digital assets. But over the recent years, more and more non-currency applications are being launched. Especially in the years 2016 and 17, we actually saw an explosion of assets in the digital financial world, especially assets that are not currencies. some other research on the topic. Here you see the technology that's being used in those digital assets. The colors now represent the consensus algorithm that's being used in those digital assets. Dark blue is the consensus algorithm that Bitcoin uses, proof of work. We see that still a couple of projects are building on top of Bitcoin, and that's good as it is, as it's still one of the securest technologies. But we also see that a lot of projects are continuing to develop the space further, are trying to implement new kinds of blockchain technologies, and are bringing the whole space one step into the next direction. One last slide from the research we are doing. Here we see the Nasdaq tech stocks in blue. The size of the circles is the market capitalization of those companies. In golden, we see blockchain assets, digital assets, and their market capitalization. We see that some of the projects are actually quite big, such as Bitcoin or Ethereum, or at the bottom left there, Ripple. But we also see that a lot of those projects are still really tiny. Actually, we don't see anything, those that are very tiny. If we believe that blockchain is going to change the world we are living in and is going to change all the industries we are living in, then we see the huge potential that there still is in the space of blockchain and digital assets. So to go a step into where we are heading, we are coming from a space of currencies, as we were saying. Those currencies had the main goal to replace or complement existing currencies. But we moved a bit away from that, and we saw in 2017 mainly utility tokens being launched, which are best described with some form of digital voucher. But now, over the recent couple of months, we see security tokens as main force or main driver in that space. For us as an investment company, it's a really important development, because with security tokens, we can actually give the investors something with something behind. That might be something that's very similar to an equity share, might be something that's more similar to a bond, as we will hear with Crowdlitoken, or something that's backed with entirely another different form of an asset. So security tokens is the main driver currently in that space, and we believe it's going to be one of the main drivers going forward. So when we try to dream a bit, where can this space go? Where do we want to go? We do a lot of that dreaming in our companies, be it Vision and or Crowdlitoken. We all have different forms of dreams. Some want to have a nice cars, others want to have a nice skiing weekend in Davos, but we are all dreaming of something. And that's also what we are trying to do when developing the project Crowdlitoken. So we started with dreaming in the real estate space. We said, how could we use this existing technology that's out there to bring that whole space one step further? If you would be dreaming entirely free, we would like to have an investment in real estate where we can directly invest into the objects, where we could individually select our own properties. But at the same time, we want to have an investment where we don't need to have millions of minimum investment in order to have a diversified portfolio by ourselves. We want to have an investment that's tradable. If I'm currently investing in real estate, I'm usually locked up because those investments aren't liquid by nature. I want to have something that's regulated. I want to have a regulatory body that's looking over that investment. And I want to have something that's transparent and where I can have a say in it, where I can be voting on it. So that's how we were dreaming when the project Crowdlitoken started. We sat together and said, okay, we want to develop a product using this existing technology that's out there and building exactly that. And that's what we did with Crowdlitoken. So at Crowdlitoken, we use tokenization and digital asset technology to exactly build our dream real estate investment. We take the best parts of direct investing into real estate. That means that you can individually tailor your portfolio. You can select whether you want to have an object in Zurich, one in London, or one in Vienna, or all together, a bit in everything. You have direct returns that are inflation protected because you're directly investing into real estate. And we didn't want to have, or our product doesn't have premiums that we know from real estate markets. On the other side, we took benefits from the indirect real estate investing world, investment funds. If you're investing in an investment fund, you don't have the hassle of looking for the properties. You don't have the hassle of knowing which market is actually good to invest in. We do that within Crowdlitoken for the investors. The product is tradable. It's the first product that has a Swiss and Liechtenstein ISIN number from the SIX. It will be listed on exchanges and be able to be stored in custody solutions. And last but not least, it's regulated. It's regulated under the body of the FMA in Liechtenstein, which allows you to have an investment that's in the setting that we know previously from investment products. As a top, as we'll show you how that's being done, will allow that whole thing to have lower fees and that you be able to flexibly reallocate your investments. It all sounds good as it is, and we would like to go a bit deeper into how we are actually able to do that and deliver on those promises.
Thank you, Lidia. I would like to explain you more about Crowdlitoken, and I would like to explain what we've done the last 12 months already. And first, we will start with our commercial concept. What we are doing, we will. Oh, I'm too fast. We will issue a token, which is called Crowdlitoken, and is simply speaking, it is a bond. We will issue a bond. It is a subordinated bond regulated by the Financial Market Authority in Liechtenstein, and we will issue this kind of bond in a security token offering. We use this money to build up a property portfolio. So we will buy properties first in Switzerland, Germany and Austria, in these three countries, and go farther to the north and to the east part of Europe. What we are doing with these properties, each property is on the blockchain, and we will tokenize this kind of properties, and with that reason we can build a bridge between the left and the right side of the balance sheet. So it is possible to participate on the net income streams on each property with your token. So the token holder can allocate his tokens directly on different types of properties and can earn the net income streams of these properties. Let's step a little bit deeper. It is very important to understand we are the issuer of this bond, and we are also the owner of this property. So we are written down in the land registry in these countries. So let's speak about the product structure. We issue a digital bond under the regulation of the Financial Market Authority in Liechtenstein, as Lidia already explained. We give you the opportunity to participate not just on the income stream of the properties. We give you the opportunity also to participate on the value side from the portfolio and from each property. What we guarantee is a minimum interest. The minimum interest guarantee starts with 1.25 and raise up to 3%. After with the fourth year, we will pay 3% after at the end of maturity. There is a repayment guarantee on the property value and the minimum 70 cents. The nominal issue price is one Swiss franc of each token. And the duration of the product is 25 years. But as Lidia already explained, we work close together with SDX. We will go in a pilot project on Q3 or 4. It depends when they are ready, and so you can sell your token anytime, buy and sell your token anytime at the end. So if there is a huge crisis kicks in the 23rd or 24th year, we need the option to go for another few years, because we have to get sure that our portfolio is stable during crisis. And with this extension option, we can hold the portfolios a little bit longer. And if the prices raise up, like in the last property crisis, real estate crisis, we don't have to rush and have to sail in a deep. So very important on this side is this nice handsome guy. It is called Hans Kuhn. Hans Kuhn was legal counsel for the Swiss National Bank during 13 years under Philipp Hildebrand, and he is a board member of us, and he was the brain, and legally speaking, he was the main person for the setup in our for our prospectus, and that we can issue a bond like this. I will show you a short video clip about the ecosystem.
Hi there, it's cool that you're watching this video. We have an absolute world first to share with you. You will soon be able to invest in real estate with a stake as small as $100 US. This is because our Crowdlitoken is moving investment properties into the world of blockchain technology for the first time. Sounds interesting, doesn't it? So how can you invest in Crowdlitoken? You can use your Ethereum to buy Crowdlitoken bonds, or you could invest directly with euros or Swiss francs. Bad guys have no place in our system. That's why we have installed an efficient identification process. And then you can get going. On our dashboard, you can choose which real estate you would like to invest your Crowdlitokens in. Have fun building your portfolio. You decide what to do with your monthly returns. If money is a little tight, you can have your returns paid out in cryptocurrency, euros, or Swiss francs. But if you want to become a real property guru, you'll choose to reinvest in real estate. It's up to you. Join us on our journey. Together we can achieve more. Together we are great. We are the Generation Crowd. Crowdlitoken, the digital real estate asset. Follow us on Telegram and social media.
Let's speak about the ecosystem of our project. You have the opportunity to buy our Crowdlitoken during our STO in Ethereum, or direct in Swiss franc or in euro. Our bond is issued in Swiss francs, so the main currency is Swiss franc, and at the end of maturity we pay back in Swiss franc or in euro or in Ethereum. You can choose in which currency you want paid out your incomes, returns, and at the end your repayment. In our ecosystem, first you have to pass our KYC process, so we have to know who is the token holders on this side. And it is like this kind of information is written down in the blockchain. We use the technology ERT20 on this side, and then you can allocate your tokens direct on properties of your choice. So you can tailor your risk and return portfolio by yourself. So if we buy a property here in Davos, or maybe in Zurich, or one in Munich or Vienna, you can allocate your investment 10% to Zurich, 10% to Vienna, maybe 50% to a student house in Poland, what you like. And if there are more risk comes in, maybe in Poland, you can disallocate your tokens from Poland more to Vienna or somewhere else. And you can tailor your portfolio every month again, and you can so you can handle your risks if you want to do this. The repayment, you can choose the repayment in Ethereum, in Euro, or in Swiss franc. So you can jump in with Ethereum, and the repayment is in Switzerland maybe, or the other way, if you like. There is another option. You can choose the Crowdlitoken reinvest option, and then you get every month the returns in tokens paid out. And you can allocate your tokens again on properties. Yes, and here is a calculation model. So you have right now a discount of 25%. So you can jump in. You can buy 100,000 tokens for 75,000 Swiss francs. At the end, you have a minimum repayment, which is 70 cents. So your risk side is at the moment 5,000 Swiss francs over the last 25 years. So we believe it is a very good chance right now. But we are not allowed to take the other money or the earnings, so we have to pay out the net market value at the end of duration, which is in 2044. Crowdlitoken is a daughter company from Crowdly, and Crowdly is based, they do crowdfunding in Switzerland. So we implement in this dashboard, we implement the crowdfunding model. So you have the opportunity to allocate your tokens to different types of properties. But first come, first serve. It's the rule in this ecosystem. So if we buy a property in Zurich for 10 millions, we use 5 millions cash from our bank side, or from us, and the other 5 millions is in mortgage. It's a mortgage from a bank. So you have just space for 5 million tokens. If it is full, you have to find another property on this side. Yeah, so we are the owner of these properties. So if there a huge crisis kicks in, we have leveraged with 50 up to 60% these buildings. So we don't have to rush, and we are not under pressure to sell these properties. So in crisis, our portfolio is still stable. This concept is the family office approach. They use them for a long time and during many crises. Yeah, and if you are not able to allocate, or if you are not interested to allocate your tokens, you get the interest rate, the minimum interest from this 3%. So you participate on these income streams just when you allocate. Okay, let's speak about it is a bond, simply speaking. And if you benchmark this bond with other bonds which are issued right now, especially Swiss Life or a CS bond, you will see if you invest over the next 25 years in each product 100,000. Crowdlitoken give you with 5%. We believe we can give between 5 up to 7% revenues. Then you see it is a performance booster for you. Where we are and where is our know-how? Our know-how is based in real estate, and these guys behind me bring the real estate know-how with them, especially Thomas Breyer. He was a CEO of a public listed company in Switzerland, and he was the CEO of it was a real estate company. Yeah, important to see PricewaterhouseCoopers evaluate and report our properties every 6 months, and we will publish them for the net market value on the exchange. How we get this income streams? So if we if we find a residential property in Germany, which costs us 15 millions. Maybe we use 60% leverage, mortgage from a bank with this interest at the moment. So after tax, after interest, after asset management fee, after property manager fee, and so on, we calculate a net income from 6%. In Switzerland, we are not able to invest in residential properties because there is a Lex Collar rule. On the other countries, we are able to invest in both. So we will invest the money in both types of properties. In our dashboard, you have the opportunity to select the properties of your own choice. So there is maybe a landscape Europe, and you see where we are already bought some properties. You choose Switzerland, and you think, okay, in the northeast part, maybe St. Gallen is a nice property. So you click on the property site, you will find everything on them. We will be completely transparent. You find the land registry, documents, the documents around the building, the quality, reports from PwC, PwC, and so on. And you will see how many spaces already used, and you find other information on it. This thing is real. It is from Crowdly. We use this kind of, or this type already, and it's easy for us to copy in Crowdlitoken. This site, documents about properties. And if you want, you can do a full-fledged due diligence on these properties. But if you don't like to go that deep, you can select your risk return, or you select your own risk return strategy, and then we propose you a few properties, and you can say, okay, yes, I want to allocate this token or not. Then you have an overview over your returns, over your allocated tokens, and yeah. For you more to know, we established a company on a public listed company style management basis, and we are ready to start. We are fully reliable KYC, AML process. We work together with Swisscom and the bank Frick. We have Ernst & Young is our auditor, and PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, is they report our properties. Yeah. Right now we are speaking with the SDX quite intensive, and we are speaking with them since 2 months, and we're speaking also with Swissquote. They won't go with us in a pilot project, so we will do that as soon as they are as it is possible. There are a few other options to listen our tokens, but at the moment we prefer SDX. There is the ISIN number, as Lidia already explained, and for institutional people we have access for storage solution, and at the end also for institutional it is very nice to have no withholding taxes, because the product is issued in Liechtenstein, and Liechtenstein doesn't know this kind of tax. Okay, where we are right now, we are at the moment in the private sale. We're looking for the first 10 millions, and for this first 10 millions we offer 25% discount. Then we will start a pre-public sale in spring this year. We offer then 20% and another 20 millions, and then we go in the public sale with 70 millions and 10%, and at the end there is an extended public sale. We will see how far we can reach this goal. Our target volume is 100 million, and we need 45 millions for our soft cap to have a concept which is working. So our team, we are not alone behind Crowdlitoken. There is a smart team members behind, between the old financial or typical investment banking person up to the young tech nerd or tech specialist. We have a good mix, I think so, and it was very important to establish this kind of product. I think so. Crowdlitoken is a use case, especially for security token, and we are not speaking about what we can do. We have already done these things, and we are ready to start. Dashboard is ready, KYC process, all the software programs are ready. We have already reserved 40 million properties around. We have reserved properties with a volume from around 40 millions, and we are ready to start. Now it is a marketing and a sales case, and that's why we have Lidia and his team on board. So we are here happy for questions, and thank you for your attention on this side.
Okay. Lydia, Dominic, thank you so much. It's quite interesting. I probably for the third or fourth time I saw about the presentation about Crowdlitoken, and it's great to see how every time progress is being made and it gets more and more concrete and specific. So I wish you all good luck that you can go ahead with that one. You have basically a two-sided market, and you both need liquidity on both sides. How do you plan to manage that those liquidities on both sides are in sync?
So you mean that we have, on one side we have to purchase objects, properties, and the other side we have to do fundraising on the token side?
Exactly. That they remain in balance, kind of.
Yeah.
So we have split our team, especially Thomas Pryor and Felix Helling. They are screening right now the market for properties. They are well connected, and we have some searching profiles of each country. We have paced or developed them during the last weeks, and we have also an investment, a real estate committee, and they are looking and screening the markets for properties. They are well connected and connected in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. And in Austria we have our advisor, which is Gerhard Höhan, and he's also famous in real estate. He have bought a lot of properties, and that works, yeah. And the other side we have Lidia with his team, and Reto, Trustology, and so on. They are also well connected, and we are screening at the moment wealth.
So actually the real estate side is more the easier part, I would say. We are very well connected there, and so also this the reserving of already 40 million in properties shows us that it's okay to find really well-valued properties with that network we have. It's really the focusing on the fundraising side currently, which we need more effort in, and which we are currently placing.
And we don't have to rush after the soft cap. Then we have to go fast, but not to rush. Yeah.
I've seen already a couple of projects in property, and some of them they offer directly that you are owner of the property. And if I now see your project, I'm not owner of the property. I can select it on the system, but at least if another object or another property comes in trouble or can maybe leads to an insolvency of your company, then at least I have the full risk on my side, even if I have selected the best property in your portfolio. This is one question. Second question is, I always like in sales, from my whole experience, simple solutions, simple approaches. And if I see at the moment the whole blockchain ecosystem, I don't see really who are the people who should now invest. We have our nerds. We don't want to have assets behind. We want to have a proper setup of the company just going up. We have investors. They are also not interested to invest in such a portfolio because of the due diligence. And the main audience of people, normal people who might be interested to have by this a participation in properties, I don't see it on short notice. And I would like to comment you on that.
Yes, you see a lot of tokenizations projects, especially in real estate. Yes, I agree with you. But I never see before a concept like this. And it is not just a concept, as I explained at the beginning, not just a concept for tokenization properties. We issue, simply speaking, a bond we can use this bond to invest in properties. We can use this bond also to invest in, or we can set up a second product to invest maybe in cars or in containers or maybe in equity or in shares or in private equity, whatever. It is simply speaking a digital asset, a digital kind of form of a new asset. It is a next evolution step in the financial product world. And we are much cheaper than a bond, than a real estate fund. We are much easier to handle. There are no bank costs for an investor, and we are on the net income side. And each investor, especially huge investors, wealth management companies, family office, private banks, they have a huge gap on the bond side, and they have so many liquidities at the moment, and they have to pay negative interest fees. And there is a huge reason for a kind of this product like this. And I believe you have not just a risk for one property. Our function is the asset or the portfolio management on this side, and we participate on the we have a performance participation, a performance fee. So we are also interested to have good properties in our portfolio, and if we have bad properties, we have to pay this 3% minimum interest. So it is very important for us to get in minimum this 3% on each property. But at the end, you have a few votings right. If we want to sell a property, we have to ask the people who had allocated their tokens on these properties. So if you say, okay, you want to sell this property, you get the earnings. We allocate the earnings to the token holders directly. So on the other side, if there is a crisis, yes, of course, you can disallocate your tokens to another property. At the end, when there is one or two bad properties, it goes, the net market value will go a little bit down. But at the end, we will diversify our portfolio over German-speaking countries and more to the North country. And if we are bigger and bigger, if we get bigger and bigger, the diversification kicks in, and we will get more stable. Thanks for the
Maybe
question.
on the second question, quickly, who we are talking to and how the institutional investors are reacting. As we know, and as a lot of institutional investors see as well, this space is developing quite quickly, and they read a lot about blockchain assets, digital assets, and a lot of institutional investors want to do something. They want to start doing something in that space. Up to now, they only had currencies or ICO projects they didn't really believe in. And now what we are seeing is when going to them with a project like that, where they understand real estate, for many investors, even on the institutional side, they're actually now doing the first step. They're making the first step into the digital asset space with Crowdlitoken because they understand one part of it, and that's real estate. The other part, the blockchain digital part, they want to learn, and for them it's a good trial project to actually do that. One thing I agree with, it has to be easy. That's why we are talking to institutional players like Fontobel, Swissquote and so on, that those investors can actually put that product into their existing systems. That's why we have an ISIN and so on. We want to be bankable, and we are bankable in that sense, yeah.
Maybe you have almost answered the question. When you look to the balance sheet we have shown, then you're offering a new channel how you can buy property or parts of property via your product. When you look to this buyer's market, and you mentioned some already, do you think that you start cannibalizing existing, let's say, method to invest, loans with your product, or are you increasing the buyer's market. So the amount of institutions, people who would then have an interest in buying property.
I would argue both. On one side, we are kind of cannibalizing a bit the whole investment fund space, I'd argue. So real estate funds that have still really high fees that are inflexible and intransparent, we are somehow a competition for that. On the other side, we open up the market for an investor class that wasn't allowed to or wasn't able to invest in real estate before, and that's the whole retail segment. So today, as a retail investor, you cannot invest in real estate directly, and that market is an entirely new buyer's market that we would open up.
And do you have an idea about the sizes of these markets, retail versus the incumbent market?
It's difficult to say, but so the retail market is actually the one that we see a lot of interest from. So not like 100 Swiss francs, but a couple of thousand, 10,000, 50,000 Swiss francs. In that space, those investors seem to be eager to invest in real estate and looking for products like that. But in terms of size, it's difficult.
And right now, still, we have not, at the moment, we have not done some marketing campaigns and so on, but the traffic, especially from Asian countries, are huge. They like real estate and investment, and they like to invest with small amounts. And I think so. The potential of the retail group, target group, is quite huge. But it is a marketing story at the end. And yeah.
Well, it's just about whether with your product you can move market prices. You know, if the retail market is 30% untapped, and all of a sudden you make it accessible, then all of a sudden you will see a movement in the overall price dynamics of the real estate market, locally or maybe regionally.
You mean with the Crowdlitoken may be able to move a bit the real estate market? Well, that would be really good. I'm not sure in terms of size if that's possible. So we're talking now about 100 million. The product can grow up to 1 billion. So it is a potential to be a large product. But it's also in Europe as an entirety. So we're going to the Northern European countries as well as the Eastern European countries. So there, the real estate market is huge in total. So with 1 billion, we shouldn't move markets, I assume. But with secondary products and so on, might be a good question to address. Yeah.
I would like to start with introducing myself. I have been entrepreneur for 20 years. I started in voice over IP and then moved into mobile marketing, social media marketing, and during these 20 years I've always been doing fundraising, and I have always seen the fundraising industry from the different players, such as angel investors, VC companies, funds, and whatever. With the ICOs coming up 2 years ago, becoming very intense, they have created a new way of financing projects. So some projects suddenly were able to raise funds of 20 million in 5 minutes. And this, of course, has attracted a lot of people which wanted to do the same. The problem is you cannot just raise funds and then to work on it on just an idea. You need to have a real solid product that you're able to develop over the time with the aim to create a return. The problem with this whole ICO thing is that most people were just creating a white paper with some fantasies, and they didn't know exactly how the return should take place. Because most said, oh, because of the value of our token will develop just because of people who like it. But why people like value? Why people like a token? It must have a value. And just by creating a great marketing campaign and making a bounty program or to drop coins onto the street doesn't create value per se. You need to have a valid business model, and you need to develop this substantially into the future. And this is something that in the past have been covered by VCs. In the past, a young company went to a VC, they were presenting the project, and after the Friends and Family program, with the first investment, they got maybe some 200,000, maybe 500,000 from a VC, and with that they could continue. And they would only receive more money after they have proven they deserve to get more money. Now with the ICO, this became obsolete. When you get 20 million in one go, there is no proof in between that you're able to perform. And so there was a conflict between the old world and the new world. Between the VCs world, who were controlling the investment, who were giving the funds as needed, versus going out there, creating a huge marketing campaign, and then get all the money in one go. And that this has not been healthy, we have seen from the development, because most tokens have been shown to be not valuable, and therefore they have decayed. So we're now in the transition with the STOs, and hopefully here we'll get the value. We'll get the value, and through that we can attract investors. But still we have the difference between the old world and the new world, and I think that both worlds are going to converge, because we need both. We need the controlling aspect from the VCs, who are giving the funds at the moment it is needed. Maybe this can be put on the blockchain as well. But you also need to have the dynamic of the new world to be able to fund projects quickly. Now, the downside of the VCs are that they knew that they are in power. So when you went to a VC company, the VCs were providing the terms. And there was little room for you as a company to negotiate, unless you were already successful and unless you didn't need the money anymore. But when you needed the money from a VC, the VC was dictating the terms. And usually these terms were not favorable, with liquidation preferences and things like that. The ICOs were the exact opposite. Without any liquidation preference, without issuing any shares even, where it just took the money to do something. Now, the funding itself is of incredible importance, and we see that in this chart. What we see here is that only when funding is available, we have the ability to develop wealth and valuable companies. In the US, Silicon Valley attracts everything. So all the companies go to the Silicon Valley to raise funds. And this is, the outcome is visible here. All the most valuable companies are located in the Silicon Valley, Microsoft in Seattle, but this has been the work or the cause by VC funding initially. Then we have a second group of bubbles in China. China has been quite slow how they started. Alibaba had big difficulties to get the first funding, but once it started, it grew very quickly. And what happens in Europe? The reason why in Europe there are no big companies in terms of the valuation is because Europe didn't provide enough risk capital, because the European investors are in general too risk averse. The same as US investors on the East Coast. So it's much more difficult to raise funds in New York than to raise funds in San Francisco. Now, with the ICOs, I had the hope that this landscape is going to change dramatically because the ICOs would allow that the fundraising is spreading more equally over the world, that it doesn't depend anymore on the location of San Francisco. And this is the big advantage of the ability of the new world to do that. Now let's compare the volumes. There are some people who say that the fundraising through ICOs were bigger than the seed stage funding of VC capital. I wouldn't like to exclude the later stage VC capital, because if you do an ICO or an STO raising 20 million, this is combining different stages and not only seed stage. And therefore we need to look at the entire VC stage arena. And when we see that for VC funding only in the US, we are around 90 billion, while the peak in 1980 was close to 8 billion in ICO fundraising. So we're still far away from the big amount of fundraising worldwide. So there's still a lot of things to do in terms of capturing up. And therefore, it is very important that the STOs and ICOs are able to get access directly to those investors who are directly feeding the VCs. And these are the family offices.
Could you sort of estimate or give us a number of the amount of projects that are being supported? So the 8 million represent maybe 10 projects, I don't know, just guessing now.
The 8 billion was about 2,000 projects.
2,000. And on the other side, then 80 billion?
I don't know about that. I have just seen this. This is total amount of funding from VCs in the US only. So the right side is not even worldwide. But I just wanted to show the difference, that you see the magnitude of difference between the two. As getting an idea, because I didn't find any detailed numbers on this. But it's quite interesting to see and to compare. And VCs are mostly fed by family offices, so it's a big task of the STOs and to get access to these family office investors. And the beauty here is the following. When a family office usually make asset allocation. And so they say, we allocate 1% or 2% or 3% into risk capital. So usually this risk capital goes into VCs. The VC is investing this money into risk companies at a certain risk. The VC is getting a great return by understanding the risks of the companies where they invest into. The problem is, the bigger the portfolio, the less important is the risk understanding of the companies. That means, when you look at the portfolio of 10 companies, it's very important that you make a very good risk allocation. But when you have a portfolio of 100 companies, it becomes less important. Which means, through the STOs, a family office has now the opportunity to directly create a portfolio of companies, of 100 portfolio companies. Because they can allocate tokens at the lower numbers. So they have, through the STOs, the family office have the chance to build up easier their own portfolio and to make a big portfolio of 100 companies, and therefore also get a similar return like a VC is getting. But what a VC is doing is, a VC gets a performance fee of at least 20%. And when a family office is directly investing into companies through an ICO, they can get rid of this performance fee. And I personally believe that the risk they take is less than 20% of what they save towards the VC company. And this is, I would like to open for discussion.
I don't have a direct reply to what you mentioned, but an indirect reply. So, or thoughts for discussion, which is the role of the VC, the role of the expert investor, which is often lacking when it comes to ICOs, because you just have the crowd jumping in, or used to at least until middle of last year. So I think that role is still very important, that you have an expert investor, because if I invest 1,000 francs into an ICO, I'm not going to go spend 3 days researching this company. You know, I'm just going to throw the money in because such and such investor put his or her money in. So I think that's the discussion that we ought to have of the expert investor, because you can cut out some of the middlemen. You're talking about that 20% fee, and they do receive that 20% fee for a reason, you know. But at the same time, there is probably a lot of fat there that can be cut. But anyhow, just wanted to bring up that subject, the role of the professional investor, VC, and maybe we can discuss that, or maybe you have a reply to that.
Well, you said it correctly, that we need to have some expertise in staging, because it's not good when young entrepreneurs get all the funding in one time. And so this is what the VCs are usually observing and taking care of, that they're not inflated with money. And these are things that we need to be considered in STO projects. So maybe we need to enforce that STO projects are staged, that the money goes into, that certain money exceeding a certain amount goes in the escrow account and is only freed up at the moment the company has achieved the goals they have put into their promise.
I think if we have something good in the old time and something good in the new time, I always would like to combine it in a way, so to say that we could get, not as a requirement, but as an idea that VCs, if they want to participate in the world today, that they have provide themselves at least the ICO, bringing their own money in it, and then we have a step ICO, which is not once ICO on Monday, which is, like you said, combined with milestones, combined with the voting of the community and the VC really as an advisor and controller on it, so that you have an interaction between the two parties, and by that to release the problem, because I don't see any ICO who would say, I would like to have just a part of the money, and the rest of the money I only want to get if I achieve something. I think most of the ICOs need an alternative in saying, okay, I get additional advice, I get additional support, I get clear milestones and clear assets already parked by the investor for me, so that I only have to get additional funds from the community if my project is going in a good way. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's a great idea. And this goes towards transparency. The problem also with ICOs is that they list a lot of advisors. But when you invest in them, you have no idea what contribution one advisor is doing and what his revenues are or what his returns are. Some people only become advisor because they just have a big reach in the social media, and they do nothing else than providing their reach for the marketing campaign, but they don't provide any other value to the company in terms of expertise. And so it could be something of that to open transparency, that this process become more transparent.
Yeah, maybe here I would come back to the thing. I think if you kind of, what you're proposing is a kind of regulating the process of an STO or ICO. And I think what the good thing about ICOs was that, at least in Europe, it's not only that we have no good investments in Europe. Obviously, the European VCs were not able to identify capable entrepreneurs, because 20 years ago I made myself these pitching in front of VCs, and in Europe and also in the States. And the problem is really that European VCs tended to turn down every project. I mean, Spotify was turned down by most of the European VCs. So I think the ICO was kind of finally get the freedom to let the people try it. So to bring their idea to market. What I would really see as much more helpful is if you raise 20 million equivalent money, you need a professional CFO, and you need a coaching or board that helps you to become an entrepreneur very fast, that has to deal with huge amounts of money and start planning. So just as from my perspectives, I don't think that this milestone thinking of the VCs was very successful. I think it's one of the problems of the VC business.
True, completely agree. But on the other side is that the founders who made a successful ICO will unlikely take experienced people who tell him how he should do the work.
It's very interesting, this topic, and I would like to add another view. It's about the classical business model, which means VC. You explained very well how this money are collected and why this enterprise, because enterprise means the old model. And why the old model should be, let's say, transformed into the new business model. The new business model means platform business. Platformification, it's a trend of the whole economy, and the enterprise, it's an old-fashioned model, business model. And here I can observe that VC, it's for sure the old model. And these ICOs, sometimes they reach the platform level. For this reason, was so appealing. For this reason, for example, in a platform business, the community can play a very important role. There is multiple parties playing role. There is not only a value chain, a mainstream of value. And maybe if we combine this, and we can think new way of building a platform business for feeding the new ideas in the market, for feeding the new trend in the market.
Well, I agree that it has to be community driven. And so the platform thinking is quite important. But I'm just afraid that when you look at this here, most money still goes into the US, and the US VC now start to adapt their business model towards STOs. We see this as quite a strong trend when you go to the Silicon Valley. And so, if this is the real case, it will mean that the dominance of Silicon Valley to attract money will remain.
But STO also can be from the scratch designed like a platform, for example, and because a platform can be self-regulated and can meet the compliance requirements from the beginning. And in this case, the traditional VC can play a certain role. It's just to plug in these new business models.
Yeah, we will see. This is exactly the challenge. Yes?
I think if we want to attract something, I always don't like if you squeeze something to do something or to regulate it. So in my opinion, we will not hinder any money to go to the other area if you just say we would like to have a regulation or a limited platform. Even in the VC area, you have a lot of guys who have not a clue about entrepreneurship, and they're good and bad guys there. So I think we should do the things what we should do in our ecosystem. What's blockchain about? It's the decentralization, but also transparency. So to think about what ideas we can bring in to support it, that we have better advisors, we have better VCs, we have new models, like Switzerland did it also in the past and attracted companies and people here, and then to make transparent how an advisor or an VC is performing. And there could also be tokenized platforms be integrated. I don't know spontaneously how, but we should maybe tonight think about this or with some guys, and then really to motivate the people to stay here and to be here. And there should be also two other topics maybe thinking about of a decentralized entity which has at least no legal seat anymore, and that maybe Switzerland is supporting such solutions as a part, or that we are coming up with new ideas where the people say, wow, this is a good environment in Switzerland, there I would like to be.
Actually, it's at the end, it's a question of trust. If this movement that we have with ICOs and STOs is creating more trust, we'll be attracting the family offices. But to my experience, it will take quite some time. But I see, like the presentation from Lidia, I think this is extremely promising. And so this has a real chance to attract family office investors and to attract good money, and then to make this money to come into Europe and to create impact in Europe.
All along the lines of what Cornel said about platformification, if you go now to the Silicon Valley, Sand Hill Road is where all the the prominent VCs are. There is the CEO of SoftBank, a Japanese guy, and if you go and pitch there, if you get a chance to pitch, and he happens to like your project, and you want 5 million for 20% of your company, he says either yes or no. But if he says yes, he will likely say, okay, I'm not going to give you 5, but I'm going to give you 20 million. Give me 30% of the company instead of 20 or whatever. Take it or leave it. You have like 30 seconds to decide. It's a 180-degree turn compared to what the traditional VC does, which is, give them a little bit and let's try it and let's be very cautious. And it goes along the lines of what some foundations do in the US. They say, there's the Ford Foundation and a couple others, which say, okay, we want a huge impact. We are going to give 100 million to one project rather than with Gießkannenprinzip a little bit to everybody. And of course, with platforms, you need that big push initially to create momentum, and momentum begets momentum, That doesn't apply to every project, of course, but I think it's fascinating development, and it's hard to compete against California, which is a bunch of gold digger risk takers in the first place, and a few religious zealots thrown in 150 years ago. That's how the country or the state started. And us in Switzerland, we're all about infrastructure. We're not about digging for the gold, So I don't know if we should even compete, or if our competitive advantage is to be looked for somewhere else. Anyway, just some random thoughts there.
Yeah, so I've done VC funding in the US in Silicon Valley, and I've done an STO last year in Switzerland. So there is a lot of things that are similar but not similar, So when you're doing a VC funding, as you said, the VC dictates the terms. When you're doing an STO or an ICO, you come up with your own terms, kind of whatever, let's see if we get money. That was a lot of the ICOs, let's see if we get money. And so to attract these investors, you need the dialogue between the two things, between the family office and the ICOs. If you don't have the dialogue, it means just have a random valuation or you have a random program and hope for the 20 million and so on. The other thing I want to actually challenge is when you say all the VCs are only in California in that sense, or why are the big companies in California? So I've done startups in California, in Silicon Valley, and now I'm doing a startup here. Actually, now we're an established company, we're 5 years old. But it's also about the people who are there, you know. So if you look at these companies in California, it's very often it's immigrants, or maybe not the head guy, but often it's immigrants that come from all over the world to Silicon Valley. These people want to work, they want to build a company, they want to get rich. There are not that many people here in Switzerland that come here and want to get rich.
True.
And I mean, most people here in Switzerland, I can get a job at SBB or whatever at Swisscom, and I have a decent salary, I have my 6 weeks of vacation, you know, and I have my pension fund, and everything is fine, you know. There is no desire to get rich, you know. I mean, when I hire people in Silicon Valley, they ask me, what's my job and how much equity do I get? When I hire people here in Switzerland, it's like, what's my job and how many vacation days do I have? So it's a mentality difference, you know. It's not just the VCs are not willing to give the money, you also have the right kind of people to do that. So
I agree with this.
But maybe one comment on this. I think it makes no sense that we try a history of 400 or 500 years in Switzerland and the cultural output to convert it just to be a competitor of Silicon Valley. I think these are two different things you cannot compare. It's a huge market, it's a totally different cultural setup. But if you see the history of Switzerland, we have, in my opinion, 3 USPs which are guiding us today. There's one thing, that we are the most decentralized political and economical system for hundreds of years. And this is in blockchain, I think, a huge benefit. The second topic is we have really survived a lot of attacks from economical side. Our ratio to the euro was incredibly high. Everybody saw that the Swiss economy will totally go down and we will have hundreds and thousands of unemployed people. And the opposite was coming out of it. And the third one is, even here in this bloody blockchain area, Switzerland was for a long time, if you saw all the ICOs coming up, leading. We had a leading position in money, and companies come in. And so I would like to take, Robert, your approach and say, don't take the Silicon Valley as the example, but take some aspects out of it. And one aspect here which is lacking is, everybody says, I don't want to have a big office here in Switzerland because there are no developers here. So we have to think about how to bring more developers here with maybe zones like in Silicon Valley, to give them an additional on it, but not to try this mentality with the Japanese VC. There's a mentality in US, I like it, it's a good one, but it will never work in Switzerland. But now I will stop for that.
Yeah, I mean, I actually agree. We should let people come in, and you know, I was part of the .com boom and went through that stuff, and then people are asking me, how is this with the crypto boom? How is that? And actually, the good thing is, when the crypto boom, you can be pretty much anywhere in the world. You don't have to be in Silicon Valley, like with the .com boom. Actually, Switzerland is a pretty good place to be in the crypto boom. So I agree with you. Yeah.
Maybe we should come back a little bit to the real situation between, we have a comparison between ICOs and venture capital. And maybe it's a little bit an unfair comparison, because ICOs are very young and venture capital has quite a long tradition, has structures, has clear processes, and also the enterprises that are active in that space, there are already companies. And when you look at ICOs, very often ICOs were just projects with some coders, and who was investing in these ICOs, very often other coders. And so we have a kind of a different ecosystem, but nevertheless, because of our ability to crowdfund, because crowdfunding was the basis of these ICOs, also the mentality is there, that you give your money to people you don't know. You just have a platform and you see that's a project that has nothing to do with ICO, but this mentality has developed. And this was the basis, in my view, that an ICO, this kind of crowdfunding could become such a success, a short-term success. My question would be now is, what can we take as a positive element going in the future with ICOs? What can we take? Or shall we just say, listen, we just have to take the strategy or the processes from the traditional VC and marry that? Then you just turn the ICO into, you make it closer, maybe it's a different road. So that's my question here. What can we take as positive element out of this?
I see, if we compare it, I see at least a risk for the VCs, because if I'm a good project, and then if I can convince people, then I will take the ICO, because I have all not this rubbish with all the milestones and preferred liquidation preference and all this stuff. So that at least for the VCs in future would remain only the second league, not the best one, only the second best project. So this could be, in my opinion, a strong motivation to contact the VCs and say, hey guys, if you don't want to have the second best projects only, in future, would it not better to come up with a better offer and a better structure to really support blockchain technology?
Yeah, actually, this would have been the best way, but actually we have been proven wrong. So last year, we see that on the left side, the traction of ICOs went down. So we have much less investors who have trust in it.
This was a bubble. We had a bubble before, which was incredible high, which was not real. We had the real bubble, and now we have the situation. Out of my observation, we have a lot of projects financed, and they have not delivered. And we need to wait until they deliver, but they will deliver. My project, where I'm also involved in LISC, will deliver on short term. Other projects like Cardano will deliver on short term, on technology. Bancor delivered on the exchange side, and the wallets and others are the same. I don't want to take them out, a lot of more coming up. And so the courses are not going up, the nerds are invested. We have a natural small valley here, which is also then a kind of Silicon Valley. And afterward it will recover, because the idea that everybody can invest and decide itself, it's, in my opinion, such brilliant that it will overcome a traditional, quite narrow, very bounded VC system in the old style.
Yeah, but we also see that in the beginning of the ICOs, there was a lot of public investment, and now we have about 60 to 70% is private sales, maybe 80%, which means most money comes from big investors, family offices, into the companies, and a little bit is filled up by public money. This is the current stage. So I still have the hope that we can get more traction in Europe for fundraising, that the companies can stay in Europe, get enough funding, instead of being forced to escape to the US to get the big money there. But this is actually the big advantage of blockchain.
You see, blockchain for sure that will transform all the business model in the world. Based on smart contracts, every classical business should be transformed into something different. And here, for example, we have to learn why VCs are not so flexible, okay, and why this ICO bring fresh air, okay, into the business models. If we combine these two, and in my opinion, we can design any platform business, okay, taking the good from classical model and transforming this classical model in a new model, that means platform, where family offices, they just come to plug in and to replace the administrative structure of VCs. This is the trend we should, let's say, follow. And Switzerland, I'm a resident in Switzerland, but Switzerland is the best place in Europe. If you look to European Union, which is a crazy bureaucratic structure, they don't have any chance to articulate a real business model, a feasible business model. For this reason, Switzerland can play this role, but also here should be a steering committee to start to redesign this business model, crowdfunding business model.
But the question is whether this should be the company itself or whether this should be a body created by the community to help the companies to avoid mistakes.
The idea for asking for money is the business itself. Platform business should be present like a business, for example. For example, the most important volume in this moment is trading. Nobody think how to restructure, let's say, a trading platform based on smart contract and blockchain. Everybody wants, but there is not enough spending here. This is a big investment. This is it's an important volume of research for doing this stuff. You cannot allow such a big project, including EOS or Cardano. Okay, they are just open community. They don't have all the, let's say, the spices inside. They don't have the whole structure of management for performing. This is my opinion that, okay, if we can redesign the VC role and to transform in a platform business, okay, and we can offer the platform business model, it's important. And because the ICO wasn't sustainable. Great ideas, taking a huge risk to build from scratch a team in 6 months or 1 year. We know that, okay, 3-5 years means minimum to build a team.
Yeah, but also we have to see that the projects that you just mentioned, most of them are US projects, which are using Switzerland as jurisdiction to avoid the SEC regulation. And to wait until the US has found a good ground to continue. To be honest, Switzerland didn't become a hotspot for blockchain and ICOs because the innovation power is located in Switzerland. This was just pure incident that some people outside Switzerland just has discovered Switzerland as safe haven.
Let's take this advantage, okay? If it's happened, okay, let's take an advantage from this.
Yeah, the thing is, but we have to work on this. And the work we have to do is we have to create trust to the family office investors who are the biggest givers of VC capital.
Yeah, but you say this is all US-based. If you take for Cardano, for example, the major business development is Japan. You're referring to Charles Hoskinson and a small team which is US-based, but the whole developers core is also decentralized and global. If you take Bancor, it's Israel. If you take Lisk, the foundation, it's Berlin. So I think I don't see it as negative. I think it's good that we raise up the point and be sensitive, but I don't see it as negative. Most of them really like this ecosystem here in Switzerland and the advantages. We will be never a hotspot like Tel Aviv or Berlin for coders and things like this. But even if we start to have a little bit more developers here in Switzerland, because we actively support this, this would give us a real boost according to our size. We will never have the size of big nations here, and it's also too much for our small Zug and even for the whole Switzerland. But our goal, like you said, where I totally agree, is to find ideas and new ideas to just take 20%, 30% more here to Switzerland.
Yeah. Well, I agree. However, I'm not negative, but I'm just cautious. And the thing is that Switzerland has created a role which is worldwide recognition as important location. But we have to continue cultivating that in a positive way to keep it.
Where are you from? And maybe just give some background information before we explain then the solution.
Yeah, thank you very much, Reto, and thank you for this great opportunity. Actually, my roots are Aramaic. I'm an Aramaic Christian. My parents came in the 70s to Switzerland as political refugees. They grew up and were born in southeast Turkey at the border to Syria. And as you know, the story of the Christian minorities in the Middle East, it's marked by persecution, discrimination, and genocide. But the parents of my grandparents are survivors of the genocide in 1940-50 in Turkey, committed by the Ottoman Empire. And today we see the same atrocities and genocides happening in the Middle East towards minorities, defenseless groups, ethnic or religious groups. So I was born in Switzerland. I lived all my life in Zug. I had this great pleasure to grow up in such a great environment and place. I worked 12 years in the commodity trading sector, which is very common if you live in Zug with all that commodity companies. And 6 years ago I started a new initiative with my own NGO, Aramaic Relief International.
One of the key questions is always, was a kind of an obligation or just also motivation to enter that space? I mean, what was the trigger point and also the connection to blockchain? Maybe can you elaborate on that?
Yes. So first, I founded the NGO 6 years ago. That was when the war started in Syria. Our people, our community was badly affected, and as I mentioned before, persecuted, displaced, and in dire need of humanitarian aid. So, as it's common, I was very actively in our church community here in Switzerland. As a volunteer, I was leader of the youth committee. So I had a very good network to my fellowships in the Middle East through our church network. So we were very early informed about the situation there. So I tried to direct some international aid through existing NGOs to the people that were not really getting the aid, because they refused to go to the UN refugee camps, the minorities, because they were highly attacked there by the local inhabitants, by the with Muslim roots, because they were told they're on the side of the government. So it's a little bit political issue, but I couldn't really direct international aid through existing NGOs. That's why I started my own NGO. It was a private initiative. I traveled to southeast Turkey, and I distributed food parcels. That was how it started, and then we scaled the work because the media came, and we decided to continue. I went to Lebanon and Jordan, and then as first foreign NGO or first foreign aid worker, I entered Syria, the war zone of Syria, 2014, and since then I'm traveling back and forth between Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, Jordan, Uganda, and South Sudan, and the most dangerous places, and providing aid to war victims that are left behind and affected in the war places. So our focus is hostile regions, people that are internally displaced, IDPs and war victims that are hardly getting international aid because of hostilities, because of their situation, and because of lack of international knowledge about their situation or their locations. So 1 year ago I started a new initiative, a blockchain project, because we try to solve some global challenges. We faced lots of problems in the humanitarian and development space. Money transfer, one of the reasons was also sanctions, but this is another problem. So the problems are, you are all aware, if you have donated ever to an NGO, you know the problematics of transparency, of trust, of corruption, mismanagement. But the thing is also to be more innovative in the humanitarian and development space. There, you hardly see innovation there, or technical solutions that make the work of NGOs much easier, much more effective, much more transparent, or and we have been executing more than 250 projects. Sorry. Here we go. More than 250 projects, and these are not just simple projects. As you can imagine, executing a project in a war zone is quite different than being in a place that is hit by poverty or anything else. So we were quite successful with our execution rate. We have been supported so far more than 200,000 beneficiaries, and these are beneficiaries that were really in war zones, lost their houses and all their habits and everything, and people, and we had also some stories of luck. Our car was bombed or shot multiple times when we were traveling between Homs and Aleppo in 2015 or 16. I had the luck that I was sitting in another car that time.
If you have 2 million funds, why you are spread them to 6 different countries with totally different impact, like South Sudan, which is totally different from Syria? I think Syria could easily take the whole 2 million in one country. What was the idea of this decentralization?
We don't have 2 million funds by one time. So what we do is we raise funds per project. So we are first promoting the project, and then we are talking to donors or to foundations to get funded. The reason of South Sudan is a very special story. So we extended our work in 2017 to South Sudan for a very specific project, and we wanted to get a new country on the list, not because of that we don't have any work or that we were not too busy in the Middle East, but we extended so we could increase our reach, and we are working mainly with local entities. So we are collaborating with local. We don't fly in teams from Switzerland and stuff. We are always recruiting local people, individual students or teams or local agencies, and we collaborate with them in a very direct and transparent way. So we have been executing projects in Syria and in Iraq. In Iraq, we left immediate aid, and we moved more to sustainable development projects, impact projects, job creation, education, psychosocial support, as well as in Syria. In early 2017, a famine was by the UN, was established by the UN, or they called the famine. They published reports of people that are starving to death, and I met by a sudden a person from South Sudan, and we went to a research mission there, and that was the way we started in South Sudan, because we found a way. South Sudan is lacking international aid massively, and this is the focus, the scope we have. We try to raise awareness on places where international aid is not reaching. Even if we cannot solve all the problems, no NGO can solve alone all the problems in a country. But we can raise awareness, we can make a start, and we can scale. So
okay, then
let's watch a little bit movie about our work to give you more insight. I think we have enough time, right? And then we move to the blockchain solution.
On January 13, 2013, I founded the aid organization Aramaic Relief International in Zug, Switzerland, and started to provide help as first foreign NGO in Syria's war regions, and later also in Iraq and in South Sudan to the most vulnerable victims of the conflict. I am Aramean, a Christian minority based in Syria, in Turkey and in Iraq. Our past is marked by persecution, expulsion and genocide. At that time, I did not know yet where this road will lead me. Today, 5 years later, with the help of my great teams, we managed to reach over 180,000 people with humanitarian assistance and realized more than 250 relief and development projects.
is water they drink. As you can see, they have just received water straight from the river Nile. This is the water from the river Nile. They put it here in these gallons and they drink it. This is the water they drink. They have nothing else except this green water. Recording? They drink it like this, straight from the Nile. Straight from the Nile. For us as NGO, it's very important to support the remaining families, the remaining people who are still living here in war zones and close to front lines.
Young people lacking proper education generally can't differentiate between right and wrong, good and bad. To wipe out poverty and establish sustainable development, strong economy, social and political enrichment, education is on the top of all the possible means to achieve these objectives. With proper education, the youth can become productive, broad-minded, and leaders of tomorrow. Therefore, we started from the very beginning to focus on educational projects. We built the first school in Syria during the war. We renovated another school and equipped it with computers, opened an education center in Aleppo to teach and provide courses. We are supporting more than 1,000 students with scholarships, so they can complete their study and graduate. Together, we can make a change. Together, we can make this world a better place.
So, yes, I just wanted to come back to his message. In numbers, we are a small NGO, but in our achievements, in the goals we achieved on the ground and also with the people and also with awareness, it's quite big for a no-name start-up NGO in this case. We have been talking in the European Parliament, in Washington at the World Congress, at the Vatican in Rome, and I'm visiting on monthly and weekly basis communities in Switzerland, schools, children, by invitation, and tell them stories and explaining them the situation of the people and the situation of the minorities or the humanitarian situation, very different topics. And yeah, that's why. So what's our mission, what's our project right now? As I mentioned before, 1 year ago, or 1 year ago we started this new initiative because I was looking for solutions, existing solutions basically to, as I mentioned, to scale much easier with a technical solution, because if you want to provide or establish projects, you need to give to the donors, and we are working very tightly with donors, different kind of donors, private ones, foundations, family offices, companies. And what we do is we publish every project we do. We use social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, LinkedIn, our website, email, just to be as transparent as possible. And this helped us a lot. The impact of our publications helped and increased our donations and financial aid. But it's not enough. So we have also faced problems and issues, not directly with our NGO, but things that we have seen on the ground that were committed by other NGOs, by the people we helped. We are spending a lot of time with people, with affected people on the ground, and they're telling us very bad stories of how they get, or how they have faced treatments from other NGOs or from the situation in general. So all these things, we started to think about the solution to make it more direct, and especially to provide the people independency and dignity. This is what the people want. If a father cannot feed his own children, or a parents, we cannot imagine what effect this has on the family, on the situation. And So independency and dignity are two very important topics. So we decided, I was thinking about the solution when I heard about blockchain. I connected it with my work, with my experience, and thought, okay, there's a lot of projects we can digitalize. We can make it more easy and more effective, especially when it comes to donations and last mile solution. The last mile, when before the donation really reaches the end beneficiary in kind or in financial in value. So as I mentioned, these are some of the problems and solutions. We thought about we have done a lot of voucher projects on the ground, and there's a lot of NGOs, they're working with physical vouchers, providing to the families, and they can just go to the shop and decide what they need and get the food they want. The problems we have seen are lots of bags of rice that were resold on bazaars in Iraq, just that the family can get some funds and buy some other rice they're used to, and not imported rice. So it's very important to support the local economy and give them the freedom to choose what they want to feed their children. So voucher system is a very effective solution, and that's why we digitalize the voucher system. We started to, and let's talk about the solution more in detail. So I don't want to go too deep into problems because it will be very, very ugly. Especially when it comes to forced labor, forced persecution, and child trafficking, organ trading, so all the side effects of poverty. We have been facing lots of issues like that, even in camps. So camps become very quickly uncontrolled and self-controlled, self-governed by the people. It's very hard to handle it. So how's AIDONIC working? AIDONIC will be a social fundraising platform, very common to all of you, and a last mile solution connected. So the NGO who wants to execute a project on the platform, they start with a project assessment. They define the beneficiaries, they define the source of aid, the type of aid. Let's talk as an example about the food distribution. In this case, it will be a food voucher distribution on the blockchain, and they are on board the beneficiaries in advance, the NGO, to the platform by register them, going through a KYC, whether it's possible or not, so in different kind, and then start to launch the campaign where people can just donate funds in fiat or in crypto. These funds, the donation will be tokenized, so funds will not be sent to a bank account of an NGO. They stay in an escrow account of AIDONIC, and the same value will be tokenized and sent equally to the beneficiaries that were pre-allocated to the campaign. Once the beneficiaries receives the aid, and everything is trackable, everyone gets a notification, a live track, and everything is on the blockchain, very easy. So the beneficiaries can redeem the voucher, they have a validation, and they can go to the next supplier that was also pre-allocated, pre-onboarded. We're looking in the future that there will be several service providers or supermarkets depending on the project. So the beneficiary has a one-to-one tokenized tokens that represent digital aid vouchers. We can call them also impact vouchers, dependent on the project. So if it's an educational project, it can be a medication project, a rental project, a food project. So they can go and redeem the voucher, and the supplier will get funded directly from the escrow account of AIDONIC for the redeemed good, or for the goods they got through the voucher system.
That means the beneficiary needs to have a device, right?
Yes, a smartphone.
Okay.
Not necessarily. There are also solutions we are looking into in cases like in rural places, but our experience is that the coverage with smartphone is very big. Yeah. I mean, it's good so far, but there's also possibilities with face recognition, with collaborating with identity projects to use their systems and their services to have also solution for alternative.
Also, I've heard, for instance, in Jordan, also the refugee camps in Jordan, they use iris recognition, so that they have really every person registered, and then they can create vouchers, and then they can shop, etc. So is that also in these areas possible, that the Jordan Bank, for instance, is very active in?
Yes, there are ongoing projects. The main difference to that is we create a global platform for every NGO that is very easy to use, and especially it's an integrated social media platform. So NGOs can publish their project, can share projects, can follow projects. So it's a mix of social media and the last mile distribution project to use all the kind of tools to make the project more transparent and share all the emotions, and all the information on one platform to the donors, to the foundations, or whatever, whoever is involved, to every stakeholders.
The supermarket in Syria, who is the supplier, does he get crypto or get it fiat? And if he gets fiat, how you transfer it in such areas?
The supplier exchange. He gets from the beneficiaries the voucher in crypto, the voucher value in crypto, in AIDONIC token, let's say, which is one-to-one stablecoin of the donated funds. And it will work with a QR code. They will have also a profile on the platform where they can or connect it through an API to their point of sale. Once the project is executed, we can see on the blockchain exactly the amount of the values of the AIDONIC tokens they have, and they can exchange it with a cross-border solution. So we are looking into different cross-border solutions. We will have a bank relationship with the suppliers, but only with the suppliers and with the service providers. And this bank relationship will work very common with other business bank relationships to companies or service providers. At the moment we are working with Western Union Business Solution. They have a product for NGOs, for feeless cross-border transactions for NGOs. And this is a possibility we're looking into at the moment also as a partnership. But there's also other alternatives on cross-border transactions.
I have another question regarding the time span between the campaign funding, then it gets swapped into the token, and then the supplier can exchange it. So what's the time actually, or the estimated time from the campaign funding to number 4, the tokenized voucher, and until we are at number 6 at the exchanging the tokens back into the domestic fiat currency?
The exact time we will hopefully start to test the MVP this year in 3rd quarter. This is our goal. But what I can tell you, we will differentiate between cause and campaign. So a cause is just to raise awareness in advance, to get attraction from donors. So first the NGO creates a cause. They say like there's a lack of food in Tanzania and we want to start a food distribution project. So they can get already donors traction. And the donors can, if they like the project, if they want to support it, they can follow it. So they get notified when the campaigns start. After a while or after a few days, this is up in the NGO. And this we will find out more after we do the first testings. They can launch the campaign and they can give any time perspective. So if it's an urgent one, we will also have an integrated emergency pool in this solution. I can explain it later more in detail, how it works. So we went through all the use cases and tried to digitalize them. So basically it's up on the NGO, and according to the experience of the NGO, they can define the time, but we will make a limitation, so it should not be too long. And our experience is, we have done lots of physical voucher distributions. Our experience is once we distributed the physical food vouchers to the families, for example in Jordan we did that, in 2 days all vouchers were redeemed. And this is, with this experience we will work, so we'll try to. But our digital vouchers will have a validation. So we will incentivize the beneficiaries through our local agencies to tell them to redeem them immediately. But our experience is if they are in need, they do it in the first day.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. The only concern I had in the first place was because the stablecoin will be pegged to, for example, the US dollar and obviously not to the Venezuelan bolivar. So let's say there is not only regarding the urgency, but let's say they are funded, then they get the voucher, which is still pegged to the US dollar. Then I just had the concern that it might devalue when it's pegged to another domestic currency, especially Venezuela, that it can lose in value. But that's not the case, basically.
No, actually we have done all projects either in US dollar or in euro so far, whether it was in Syria, in Iraq, or in Africa. We paid the supermarkets most of the times in euro or dollar, but if it's in local currencies, we will create a mechanism that's more the part of our financial team, to create a mechanism to pre-purchase maybe foreign currencies. But if it's all in the whole flow in the same currency, it won't be a problem with the exchange rate.
The question on the donor side, how can a donor see if the money is really sent to, is that the social media he can see as immediately, or how can a donor see that the money is really going in the right place?
So we will create a mechanism on the blockchain to, after each milestone, for example, once the funds are distributed to the beneficiaries, he gets a notification. He can also go and see on the blockchain. I'm not a tech guy, but he can follow. But we will make it very user friendly, and once the beneficiary redeems the voucher, he gets another notification, and once he gets the funds, in the end, he can even send a snap integrated in the app to the donor. So the donor gets a snap of actually the family who got the aid.
I mean,
these are so small tools that we will integrate, but basically the different milestones in between of the transaction that will be visualized on the platform.
Any ideas how you can? I mean, cheating is always very. It's human nature in any society. And have you already strategies how to prevent them from cheating?
Yes, we have different solutions for that. First of all, the NGO that want to use the system, they have to go through a KYC. Oh, sorry. They go through a strict KYC. Then we will integrate a reporting tool. Tool. Everyone can report everyone. The beneficiaries, if they don't get the food for the redeemed voucher, they can redeem the service provider. We can blacklist him. So everyone has a reporting tool, and in the end, it will be kind of a competition because everyone will be appointed as a service provider, and you can just rate them like in Google rates, and the ones with the high rate. So they are incentivized to execute the service fair and good enough. And we're thinking we will have in every country that AIDONIC is active, we will have a validator, like a kind of a country director that validates the project on the ground.
On your token. So you simply say like AIDONIC token is a stable coin. Why do you take the burden on creating a stable coin yourself? And is there any other function for the token?
I mean, why not the stable coin? Because the funds that are distributed should have the same value as the funds that comes in.
Sorry, I was not asking about the reason for a stable coin. I totally understand that.
Okay.
I'm asking, why do you create a stable coin? Because there are stable coins already in the market, and some of them have shown that they work. Not all of them, and it's a very difficult subject, to be honest, from the token engineering. So it's really something you shouldn't even worry about, in my opinion, because you have many other problems you could solve, and so that's my question. And is there any other function of the token?
No, the token only works inside the ecosystem, and that's a good point. I mean, we are looking into private permissioned ledgers, where we create our own tokens for this ecosystem. And we are collaborating with an existing blockchain project that have the same, very similar, if not the same back-end workflow for the insurance sector. And we leave them this work because they have done it, we just use it. We don't create everything by our own from scratch. We use existing solutions and we integrate our project, our front end to that.
So you just mentioned private blockchain. You're working on a private blockchain.
We are looking into using a private permissioned blockchain, something like.
To me, this is.
Would you propose?
Yeah, to me, there's two things. So first of all, the blockchain technology has something that is called like token economics. There's a lot of game theory that you could use, and I haven't heard anything in here because everything you've mentioned, where people could report, they could rate. These are all things you can game, you can manipulate, and blockchain technology actually allows you to integrate systems that incentivize people to do the right things more than doing the wrong things, like a token curated registry, for example, or staking, or these are all mechanisms that sort of provide positive outcomes if you do them right, and a very negative outcome if you do it wrong, which is harming you more than the gain that you can get from doing the wrong things. So this is game theory, and this is a crucial element of blockchain, in my opinion. You know, mining is part of that, and so on. So I think that you shouldn't worry too much about having your own token, and you want to create trust. And in my opinion, a private permission blockchain is a database, so that can be manipulated by the people that own this. So you're not creating trust in that regards. So to me, there's like this. The topic of blockchain is great in this, but I think you're digitizing more than using the technology itself, and you're improving a process, which is great. But I think you can even do much more if you really utilize the technology. So I think maybe you should reassess again what you want to do, and really use the technology itself.
Okay.
I like your approach.
Maybe we should meet the next couple of days, and you can. No, actually, I'm not the technician. I'm not the tech guy, and I'm sure our tech guys are aware about the things you mentioned. I'm not also good in explaining our tech solution from the tech perspective, but I'm sure our people are aware about most of these topics and do the right stuff because they have proven knowledge and proven projects and use cases that are working already.
I think at least when I joined in South Sudan humanitarian aid project, the last mile was not the major core thing. UNICEF wasted 80% of the funds before even reaching the border of the country. When I thought about this idea, your idea is brilliant because I had some time ago a similar idea out of it because I also wanted to have a transparent working humanitarian aid organization one day. My suggestion would be, if you use blockchain, it should be really combined that from the first moment until the last moment, also the logistical chain, and there are solutions already working on logistical chains on blockchain, are really combined with the donation, so that you have at least, or even with the supplier, a clear proof that this amount of rice or water or whatever was delivered to the person there. It's a very hard work to do this, but the blockchain technology can achieve it, and if you would take this as a midterm target, then you're brilliant, and then you're beating up all other humanitarian aid organizations.
Thank you very much.